And ladies and gentlemen, we have our special guest who is Ambassador Mukul, IFS and former ambassador to Oman and Dean Foreign Service, Institute Delhi. A very, very warm welcome, sir. So कुछ ही देर में हम इस कार्यक्रम की शुरुआत करेंगे. We'll start this beautiful evening with lamp lighting. थोड़ा सा इंतज़ार और है. हमारी जो चीफ गेस्ट हैं आज की माननीय मंत्री जी, उनका इंतज़ार है और फिर हम इस शाम का आगाज़ करेंगे. We'll start the beautiful evening in few minutes. Till then, once again requesting all of you to kindly put your phones on the silent mode. Thank you. So I also would like to tell everybody कि ये जो special cap आप देख रहे हैं सभी लोग ये संजय पराशर जी हम सब के लिए लाए हैं all the way from Kullu. So requesting all of you to kindly wear it. It's a very nice cap. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your lovely gesture. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we do the lamp lighting, as we all know that we have our special guest, our eminent guest sitting right here in front of us. So, first of all, I'd like to welcome all of you. Let's welcome all of them with a big round of applause. आप सभी लोगों का तहे दिल से स्वागत है. I'd like to specially welcome all of you, especially flown the sky, and I've come here. A very warm welcome. और मैं चाहती हूँ और मैं दरख्वास्त करती हूँ सभी लोगों से कि इससे पहले कि हम लैंप लाइटिंग करें मैं कुछ हमारे स्पेशल गेस्ट को मैं मंच पर बुलाना चाहूँगी और सबसे पहले मैं दरख्वास्त करती हूँ कि हमारे बीच में कैप्टन संजय पराशर जी हैं जो कि मौजूद हैं. वी हैव कैप्टन संजय पराशर, वाइस प्रेसिडेंट मूवमेंट ऑफ पॉजिटिविटी हियर विद अस. सो आई रिक्वेस्ट सर टू काइंडली जॉइन अस हियर ऑन द डायस. सर के लिए जोरदार तालियां बजाते हैं. We have Sachi here with us, requesting Sachi to kindly join us here and honor our special guests present here on the stage. Requesting Ms. Dhanashri Patil, Global Administrator REDIO. She's here with us. Let's welcome her with a big round of applause. Requesting Ms. Patil to kindly join us here on the dais. जोरदार तालियां बजाते हैं for the beautiful lady present here. Warm welcome, ma'am. I also take the opportunity to welcome Ambassador Mukul, IFS and former ambassador to Oman and Dean Foreign Service Institute Delhi to kindly join us here on the dais. Warm welcome, sir. I may now invite Ambassador Gurjeet Singh, IFS, former ambassador to Indonesia and Germany. Very, very warm welcome, sir. Warm welcome, sir. Requesting His Excellency Dr. Ralph Heckner, Ambassador of Switzerland to India, to kindly join us here on the dais. Very, very warm welcome, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, I take the opportunity to request Ambassador Dr. Dhyaneshwar Mule, IFS, and member National Human Rights Commission to kindly join us here on the stage. Very warm welcome, sir. Warm welcome, sir. I may now request Mr. Rajat Kapoor, Managing Director, Indian Diaspora Club, to kindly join us here on the stage. Very, very warm welcome. Warm welcome, sir. So as we all know, we have our dignitaries present here on the stage. Once again, welcoming all of you. आप सभी लोगों का स्वागत है, तहे दिल से स्वागत है, आभार, आदर, अभिनंदन। मैं चाहूँगी कि कुछ लोगों से कि हमारे जितने भी स्पेशल गेस्ट प्रेजेंट हैं उनका सम्मान किया जाए एक बुके से और शॉल से। तो सबसे पहले मैं दरख्वास्त करती हूँ, आई रिक्वेस्ट मिस सांची टू काइंडली जॉइन अस हियर टू ऑनर Captain Sanjay Parasha, Vice President, Movement of Positivity. Warm welcome, sir, once again, and thank you, Ms. Sachi. I now request Mr. Rajat Kapoor, who's here with us, to kindly felicitate Ms. Dhanushri Patel, Global Administrator, REDIO. Warm welcome, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Kapoor. Well, now I request Ms. Tripti to kindly honor Ambassador Mukul, IFS, and former Ambassador to Oman and Dean Foreign Service Institute of Delhi. Let us have Ms. Tripti here. Pleasure having you here, sir. Thank you so much, Ms. Tripti, for joining. Well, now I request Mr. Rishi to kindly join us here on the stage and honor our special guest, Ambassador Gurjeet Singh, IFS, former Ambassador to Indonesia and Germany, who's here with us. Warm welcome, sir. Thank you, Mr. Rishi. Well, once again, I request Mr. Rajat Kapoor. Sorry for troubling you again. So I request Mr. Rajat Kapoor to kindly honor our special guest, His Excellency Dr. Ralph Hector, Ambassador of Switzerland to India. Very, very warm welcome. Welcoming you, sir, to Incredible India. Swagat. Thank you, Mr. Kapoor. Well, I take the opportunity to call Mr. Sanket Shah, who's here with us. A very warm welcome. I request him to kindly honor our guest, Ambassador Dhyaneshwar Mule, IFS, and member National Human Rights Commission, New Delhi. Very warm welcome, sir. Well, thank you, Mr. Shah. Thank you so much, and thank you, Dr. Mule. बहुत ही अच्छा लगा आप अपना कीमती समय निकालकर सभी लोग आज यहाँ पे आए हैं स्पेशल कार्यक्रम के लिए. Well, moving on to the next person, we have a very special guest again here sitting. on the stage. I request Mr. Ashok Motwani, who's here with us, requesting him to kindly join us here on the stage to kindly honor our special guest, Rajat Kapoor, the Managing Director for Indian Diaspora Club. आइए सर, आपका स्वागत है, बहुत बहुत तहे दिल से स्वागत है. Warm welcome, sir.
Sir, please.
I heartily congratulate all the members who've contributed for this event. Thanking all of you. जितने भी लोग यहाँ पे मौजूद हैं उनका तहे दिल से शुक्रिया करना चाहूँगी. तो जैसा कि हम सब जानते हैं कि आज की जो हमारी चीफ गेस्ट हैं यानी कि मंत्री जी, उनका इंतज़ार हो रहा है और बस कुछ ही पलों में वो हमारे बीच में होंगी और हम सब मिलकर उनका स्वागत करेंगे. ओके, सो एज आई टोल्ड यू कि हमारे बीच में एक बहुत ही स्पेशल शख्सियत मौजूद हैं और वो स्पेशली हमारे बीच में आए हैं. आई एम श्योर सभी लोग उनको सुनना चाहते हैं. So before I call him on the stage, ladies and gentlemen, I like to say a few lines about him, ladies and gentlemen. He's a National Shipping Board member, seafarer by profession. He has been on the forefront for rescuing distressed India seafarers. His work for human rights at sea is unparalleled. During pandemic, he evacuated 1,527 distressed Indians by coordinating with Indian Embassy, Oman, Iran, Sri Lanka, and he ensured their safe passage to India on his own cost. Wow, that's incredible, ladies and gentlemen. One meeting with our great leader, Srimati Sushma Swaraj, with Captain resulted in emigrate system with seafarers, which is now the backbone to protect the rights of last seafarer at sea. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm really, really honored to be welcoming Captain Sanjay Parashar, National Shipping Board member. आइए जोरदार तालियों से स्वागत करते हैं सर का.
आदरणीय मंच पर विरासत डिग्नेटरीज, डॉक्टर मूले सर, स्विट्जरलैंड के एम्बेसडर सर, एंड माय डियर ब्रदर्स एंड सिस्टर्स, मूवमेंट ऑफ पॉजिटिविटी, that word I must have heard probably when I was in school or college, but I am so thankful to Dr. Mule that it was in 2017 when I met him for the first time and we were working out to get the distressed Indian seafarers back. And that is the time I realized he's not just the passport man of India, he's a man of India who brings back those who hold passport and are in distressful situation. जो सबसे गरीब आदमी है, जो गरीब तबके का सबसे लास्ट आदमी खड़ा है भारत के छोर पर या यहाँ भारत को छोड़कर विदेशी छोर पर, the man who's there in foreign shores. And when he's in distress, I tell you, not many in the villages, their parents or relatives can make it to even Delhi. Delhi is much far away for them. And one phone call to him, or somehow the message reaches out to him, an email to him means our man, our boy, our brother, our sister abroad in distress can be back home and safe. So when he started this movement of positivity and he said, I want to formalize it, तो मैंने बोला कोई बात नहीं सर, मिलकर काम करेंगे, दम से काम करेंगे, देश के लिए काम करेंगे और जो देशवासी बाहर गए हैं रोजी रोटी कमाने, उनके लिए जमकर काम करेंगे. और मुझे खुशी है कि इस प्रकार का एक कार्यक्रम जिसमें टू इन्फ्लुएंस द इन्फ्लुएंशियल, यू ऑल गाइज आर इन्फ्लुएंशियल. मैं हिमाचल के एक छोटे गांव में रहता हूं आज की तिथि में, कच्चे मकान में, पर काम हम पक्का करते हैं। और सर आए थे एक बार कांगड़ा में, तो मेरी ये बड़ी ख्वाहिश थी कि हम बड़ी दूर से आए हैं सर, प्यार का तोहफा लाए हैं, इसलिए हिमाचल से यहाँ आए हैं। आई हैव ब्रॉट दीज कैप्स फ्रॉम यू फ्रॉम कुल्लू एंड आई एम सो हैप्पी, सो ग्लैड टू सी फ्यू ऑफ यू wearing it. I am very proud Himachali and equally proud Indian. And sir, I am thankful to you that now movement of positivity is working across Maharashtra, across Delhi, across Himachal Pradesh. और हम काम क्या करते हैं? अच्छे काम करने वाले की चर्चा हो, अच्छे काम करने वाले का सम्मान हो, ये हमने अपनी किताबों में पढ़ा है, उसको हम जमीन पे उतारते हैं. Our forefathers have done it, we are just doing the same. It is just that we have now formalized the energy and we have channelized the energy. And I am so thankful to you, sir, that as we hold the first session today, inaugural session for REDIO, Rescuing Every Distressed Indian Overseas, कोविड काल में हमने काम किया. हम चाहते नहीं थे कि ऐसी आपदा में घर के अंदर बंद रहें, पर चिंतपूर्णी माता के मंदिर के पास में ऑफिस लेकर अगर संजय पराशर कतार एयरवेज की फ्लाइट चार्टर कर सकता है, दैट मीन्स देर आर मेनी लाइक डॉक्टर मूले बैकिंग हिम बैक, देर आर मेनी लाइक हिम इन दिल्ली हुज बैकिंग हिम अप. आई एम सो थैंकफुल टू आवर ऑनरेबल मिनिस्टर पुरी जी, जो उस समय जिन्होंने हमारी मदद की. अदरवाइज डॉक्टर मनसुख मांडविया जी, जो आज हेल्थ मिनिस्टर, उस समय शिपिंग मिनिस्टर थे, it just wouldn't have been possible for 1600 distressed Indians to be back on charter flights. I am thankful to each one of them, and I think this round of applause should be for India and all the Indians who work tirelessly for Indians. हम लोग गांव-गांव में काम करते हैं सर, मेडिकल कैंप लगाते हैं, ब्लड डोनेशन कैंप लगाते हैं, बाढ़ आती है तो खाना लेकर जाते हैं और हम खुद जाते हैं. जब दिल्ली में आते हैं तो सूट पहनते हैं, और जब गांव में जाते हैं तो कुर्ते पजामे में भी कंफर्टेबल हैं. That is because when Dr. Mule talks about Baba Amte, I understand where from he is talking about. जो गंगोत्री है वो हमारे लिए सर आप हैं, और जैसे गंगा प्रवाह करके समुद्र में जाती है, मैंने तो सारी जिंदगी समुद्र में काम किया, सी फेरर्स के लिए काम किया, सी फेरर बनकर काम किया, 82 देश देखे दुनिया के, 32 देशों में हिंदू मंदिर गुरुद्वारे देखे. एंड आई एम सो ग्लैड that today I am being given an opportunity by our motherland and by so many dignitaries to serve. Big round of applause for Madam. Welcome you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our honorable chief guest of this beautiful evening, Srimati Meenakshi Lekhi, Minister of State for External Affairs and Culture of India. A very, very warm welcome, ma'am.
Ambassador Mukul, Dean FSI भी थे till very recently. Ambassador Oman and many other countries. Very distinguished ambassador. That's Ambassador of Switzerland in India. Good to see you again. Several countries, prominently Indonesia and currently writing a lot on India-Africa relations. Very active.
Ladies and gentlemen, in spite of a busy schedule, our Honorable Minister, Srimati Meenakshi Lekhi, has graciously agreed to be present on this occasion. So once again, I'd like to welcome ma'am with a huge round of applause. आइए जोरदार तालियों से स्वागत करते हैं मैम का. Requesting all the dignitaries and of course our chief guest for the evening to kindly inaugurate the evening. So ladies and gentlemen, we will have our traditional auspicious lamp lighting. तो इस कार्यक्रम की, इस शुभ कार्यक्रम की शुरुआत करते हैं भगवान के नाम से. और इस अवसर पर मैं कहना चाहूँगी कि ध्यान मूलम गुरुरे मूर्ति, पूजा मूलम गुरुरे पदम, मंत्र मूलम गुरुरे वाक्य, मोक्ष मूलम गुरु कृपा. तो एक बार चाहूँगी कि सभी लोग ज़ोरदार तालियां बजाएं. I'd like to once again welcome our chief guest, Srimati Meenakshi Lekhi ji.
फेलिसिटेट करेंगे मुझे.
Well, I request Mrs. and Mr. Sanjay Parashar to kindly join us here to honor our chief guest of the evening, ladies and gentlemen. We have Mr. Sanjay Parashar, we have Ms. Sonika Parashar here with us. हम सम्मानित करना चाहेंगे मैम को एक बुके और शॉल से. मैम, तहे दिल से आपका स्वागत है आज की इस खूबसूरत शाम में, where we all have gathered here to celebrate the global launch of mission rescuing every distressed Indian overseas. So we have Captain Sanjay Parashar here with us, who is speaking to all of us. तो एक बार फिर से
मैडम आई हैं स्टेज पे. मैडम को एक छोटी सी बात सचेत करवा दूं. मैडम, ऐसा था जब मैं आपसे पहली बार मिला था, हमारे एक सरदार कैप्टन थे इंडिया के और वो चाइना की जेल में थे और उनको निकालने के लिए मेहनत कर रहे थे. मैं उनकी वाइफ के साथ आया था और मैडम आपने वीज़ा की व्यवस्था करी. And then captain's wife went to China and she stayed there for 28 days because the visa validity was that much. And I tell you, she got a husband out of the jail, declared innocent, and thank you, madam, for that. You have been, for us, sailors at sea, you are a captain for us. हम तो आपको सुषमा स्वराज मैडम का प्रतीक मानते हैं क्योंकि seafarers in distress, we always look up to madam's office, and madam has been very kind कि हमारी जब ईमेल जाती है तो कम से कम हमें उसमें सहयोग बड़ा मिलता है. I'll come back to the things what movement of positivity does. छोटे छोटे स्कूल के बच्चे, उनको संस्कृत श्लोक सिखाने से लेकर गिटार बजाने तक, आपदा प्रबंधन से लेकर अपने में जो टैलेंट है, हुनर है गांव में, उसको शहर तक या बड़े शहरों तक लाने का काम जो है मूवमेंट ऑफ पॉजिटिविटी करती है. कॉलेज में और स्कूल में, चाहे गांव के हों चाहे शहरों के हों, वहां पर जाकर संवाद करना, and then to ensure that not only they do well for themselves, they actually do well for our society. और ये इच्छा रखना कि DRDO के जो साइंटिस्ट हों, they are spread across India, and गांव के बच्चे भी ऐसी आशा रखें कि एक दिन हम सिर्फ हवाई जहाज उड़ाएं नहीं, हवाई जहाज बनाएं भी. उसके लिए मूवमेंट ऑफ पॉजिटिविटी काम करती है. किसानों के बीच में काम करते हैं, वातावरण के लिए काम करते हैं. समाज में काम जितना है करने के लिए, उसमें जो पूरी हमें ताकत मिलती है वो हमें डॉक्टर मुरे साहब आपके मार्गदर्शन से मिलती है. एंड वी ऑल वर डूइंग दीज थिंग्स अर्लियर. कई अम्ब्रेलास के नीचे करते थे, बट ये मास्टर अम्ब्रेला है और मुझे लगता है जब तक ताकत है, जब तक सक्षम है, ये ऐसा करते रहेंगे क्योंकि सनातन धर्म का परिचय ही दूसरों के लिए पॉजिटिव तरीके से काम करना है. कोई भी छोटा बच्चा हो, उसको अच्छे संस्कार सिखाने ताकत लगती है. एंड दैट इज व्हाट वी डू एट द मूवमेंट ऑफ पॉजिटिविटी. एंड आई एम सो हैप्पी दैट वेदर इट्स अबाउट एग्रीकल्चर यूनिवर्सिटी और इट्स अबाउट ग्रेट करियर मेकिंग, वी आर डूइंग आवर वर्क. हो सकता है हमारा काम छोटा नजर आता हो, लेकिन जो छोटे घर में जाकर हम काम करते हैं तो काम की जो स्पीड है, जो काम का स्केल है, वो बड़ा हो जाता है. So whether getting back the distressed Indian seafarers, whether getting back the distressed last man standing on foreign shores who's absolutely in distressful situation, we at REDIO, rescuing every distressed Indian overseas, we do it at our cost, our money, our energy, because ये जो भारत माता है उसके लिए हम जितना करें, अपने भारतीयों के लिए हम जितना करें उतना कम है, ऐसा हम मानते हैं. धन्यवाद. जय हिंद, जय भारत.
सो ज़ोरदार तालियों से एक बार मैं थैंक यू बोलना चाहूँगी कैप्टन संजय पराशर जी का। बहुत ही इंस्पायरिंग स्पीच थी सर आपकी, आपसे बहुत कुछ सीखने को मिलेगा आज। सो एक बार फिर से सर के लिए ज़ोरदार तालियां बजाते हैं। Ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed any further, it is an honor to have the presence of our eminent guests present here. Padma Shri awardees, we have Kamalini Asthana ji and Nalini Asthana ji, sisters duo from Agra and Uttar Pradesh, known for their great performances of the Banaras Gharana style of Kathak. Very, very warm welcome, ma'am. Very, very warm welcome. Swagat hai aapka. Also, we'd like to take a few minutes to pay a tribute to Baba Iqbal Singh Ji, who was an Indio socio-spiritual leader and founder, president of the Kalgidhar Trust, the Kalgidhar Society and Baru Sahib. He was considered to be one of the most influential Sikhs in the world, bestowed with Shiromani Panth Ratan, and was conferred with the Padma Shri by the Government of India for his contributions in the field of social work. Losing him was a national loss, as Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji and President Ramnath Kovind ji condoled him his demise. His influence is such that today the network of selfless seva volunteers globally continue to spread the message of universal brotherhood through 129 academies and 2 universities. I welcome Amandeep Singh ji, who's here with all of us. So welcome you, sir. Swagat hai aapka. Okay, now moving on to the next person. Ladies and gentlemen, she as a founder and director of Celebration Events Dubai has organized various Indian cultural events in Dubai like International Kite Festival, Beach Holi Celebration, Navratri, etc. Each event of football, more than 8,000 people also organized various exhibitions to promote women entrepreneurs from India and Gulf region. So let's put our hands together and welcome Miss Dhanashri Patil, Director Celebration Events and Global Administrator REDIO. Warm welcome again.
Good evening, Honorable Srimati Meenakshi Lekhi, Honorable Minister of State for External Affairs and Culture of India, Dr. Naneshwar Mule, IFS retired, former Ambassador and Secretary MEA, Member National Human Rights Commission, Shri J.S. Mukul, IFS retired, former Ambassador to Oman and Dean Sushma Swaraj Institute of Foreign Service, His Highness Dr. Ralph Anker, Ambassador of Switzerland to India, Shri Gurjit Singh, IFS retired, former Ambassador to Indonesia and Germany. All dignitaries present on the dais and all esteemed guests. It is an honor to share this stage with all the dignitaries. We are gathered here today for the launching of REDIO. Team REDIO is grateful and happy to welcome you all. First of all, I would like to thank our guide and mentor, Dr. Naneshwar Mule sir, for bottom of my heart, who trusted me and given me the responsibility of REDIO Global Administrator and provided me the opportunity to explain the idea behind REDIO to all these dignitaries today. It is commonly misunderstood that people who are staying abroad are very happy. They earn lot of money and have fun all the time. But there is another side of this story which is not even known to the Indian people staying abroad. There are a number of problems faced by our fellow community members who are working in foreign country, especially workers. Sometimes they lose their job. There are cases of harassment, exploitation. They don't get salaries on time. They want to return to home, but the employer does not provide required documents and so on. And to address this various issue of our citizens, the worldwide movement started, who are thousands of kilometers away from our country, and that is REDIO. The motto of REDIO is Caretaker for Distressed Indian. REDIO, it is rescuing every distressed Indian overseas. This is an initiative of Movement of Positivity under the leadership and guidance of Honorable Dr. Naneshwar Mule. REDIO aims to help overseas Indians who get into distressed situation due to various factors. Over 30 million Indians are living abroad. A large number of them hold Indian citizenship. Many of them get into trouble, as mentioned in the beginning. Government of India is helping them through ICWF in a proactive manner. However, awareness among overseas Indians about government assistance, relief available, and how to contact Indian mission is poor. Besides, there are things that embassies and consulate cannot do due to rules and regulation. In such cases, radio is trying to help by building collaborative network of people who are already known for their track records for helping others. At present, radio's advisors in 18 countries are helping distressed Indians in various ways. Since last 1.5 years, radio helped many distressed Indians from UAE, Saudi Arabia, US, and other countries. Radio is a global organization spread across all continents with 20 active advisors. It has emerged as an umbrella organization to counsel the overseas distressed Indians that coordinate with mission, also with the local government of India, and the respective states in India. So far, radio has helped to free Indian workers in Jeddah city of Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and arranged food, medical help, and logistical support to return to India. We also help several laborers to return to Saudi Arabia, assisting them to get passport, emergency certificate from Indian mission. Radio also rescued Indian women from Dubai, working as a maid and stranded due to false promises of unauthorized agent. During COVID pandemic, we helped many overseas Indians to get beds in the hospital, plasma, and other necessities for their relative back home. Just recently, in January 2022, we helped three seafarers from Dubai who were cheated and abandoned by the recruiters. We also extended help to a stranded laborer who suffered for 3 months without a proper food, accommodation, and salary by company. Today, launch of radio will a much-awaited civil society effort to help distressed Indian abroad to complement government of India's efforts. There are many states where the fake agents network is active. Radio is planning to conduct awareness camps so such incidents do not occur. Radio's role is very important. When a person in distress call, that time he or she is morally down and need to understanding of this situation and a helping hand. Our team radio is available 24/7 for our fellow Indians to help them and to solve their problems. We will watch some feedbacks from our brothers and sisters. Yes, brothers and sisters, because during this entire process of getting them safely back to India, we develop a special bond. Let's watch the video.
उन्होंने 10 दिन तक होटल बुक किया, उसके बाद 10 दिन के बाद वो रिस्पॉन्स देना बंद कर दिया। उन्होंने हमसे कनेक्शन छोड़ दिया, मतलब बोलना ही छोड़ दिया, अपना नंबर ब्लॉक कर दिया। अब हम लोग क्या करें तो क्या करें, उसका कुछ समझ नहीं आ रहा था। हम लोग गुरुद्वारा जाकर 3 दिन स्टे किए हैं। उसके बाद भैया से बात हुआ, जो विकास गुर्जर धनगर नाम है, जो विकास भैया ने हेल्प किया। उसके बाद उन्होंने कैप्टन संजय परास्कर सर का नंबर दिया, उन्होंने पर्सनली वो भी मैसेज की हम लोग के लिए। उसके बाद धनश्री पाटिल मैम, उन्होंने हमसे प्रॉब्लम पूछा, फिर उनको भी बताया हम लोग प्रॉब्लम ऐसा ऐसा है। उन्होंने बताया आप टेंशन न लो, आपका काम हो जाएगा, आप थोड़ा धैर्य रखें। उसके बाद उन्होंने राहुल सर का नंबर दिया। राहुल सर ने हम लोग को सुबह में कॉल किए और उनसे बात हुई। उन्होंने अपना मेंबर भेजे जो रेडियो टीम के मेंबर है, यहाँ सुबह में आए, हम लोग खाना खिलाए और उन्होंने अपनी कार से और ले गए दुबई एम्बेसी। उन्होंने वहाँ पर प्रॉब्लम आगे सर से बात हुई तो उन्होंने 1 दिन के अंदर पूरा पॉसिबल किया और उन्होंने हमारा टिकट कल करा रहे हैं, हम लोग कल इंडिया आ रहे हैं और कोविड टेस्ट के लिए पैसा तो राहुल सर ने दिए थे।
रेडियो टीम के मेंबर को सबको हमारी तरफ से बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया।
मुंबई से बात कर रही हूँ। जो मेरे साथ हुआ वो आप लोगों के साथ ना हो, इसलिए मैं ये वीडियो बना रही हूँ। मुझे यहाँ पे बोला गया था कि टीचर का जॉब है करके, और मुझे जब वहाँ पे गई तभी मेड का काम करवाया गया। मैं तो होप सी छोड़ चुकी थी कि मैं वापस इंडिया में आऊँगी और यहाँ पे आने के बाद में मैं अपनी ये सिक्योर रूलिंग राइट जी पाऊँ। इंडिया में हूँ। ये रीज़न है रेडियो के लिए। ये जो काउंसिलर के थ्रू मैं आई भीतर, वो चीज़ मैं आप लोगों के साथ शेयर करना चाहती हूँ। ये एजेंट्स आप लोगों को लगता है उतने अच्छे नहीं होते हैं, प्लीज़ अवेयर रहिए, हर वो बातों पे सेफ रहिए, क्योंकि हर कोई आपका साथ नहीं देता। काउंसिलर आपका साथ देते हैं, रेडियो की तरफ से जो माध्यम से एनजीओज हैं वो आपके साथ देते हैं। प्लीज़ ऐसे लोगों से कांटेक्ट कीजिए जिसके थ्रू आप लाइफ में आगे जा सकते हैं। उन लोगों ने मेरे साथ वही किया और उसके बाद मैं इंडिया वापस आई फरवरी में। मैं आप लोगों को सिर्फ इतना ही बताने की कोशिश कर रही हूँ, जो कुछ भी ऐसा होता है या हो रहा है उसको प्लीज़ बंद कीजिए। वहाँ से आते टाइम भी आप लोगों को 1000 पुलिस लोगों को आंसर करना पड़ता है कि आपने ये क्यों किया।
मैं अभिषेक ठाकुर हूँ, मैं हिमाचल से हूँ। मैं दुबई में आया था और एजेंट ने मेरे से पैसे ले लिए और मैं 3 महीने कंपनी में रहा। कंपनी ने मेरे को काम नहीं दिया और कंपनी ने मेरे को सैलरी नहीं दी और मैंने संजय प्रेषर जी के साथ कांटेक्ट किया और उन्होंने मेरी बहुत ज़्यादा हेल्प की। फिर संजय प्रेषर जी सर ने धनश्री मैडम के साथ कांटेक्ट किया और धनश्री मैडम मेरे साथ बात की, उन्होंने मेरी बहुत ज़्यादा हेल्प की। धनश्री मैडम ने दुबई में गणेश पंत सर के साथ बात की, उन्होंने कंपनी से टिकट मांगी और कंपनी से बात की, उन्होंने भी बहुत ज़्यादा मेरी हेल्प की। अब मैं रेडियो टीम का थैंक यू बोलना चाहता हूँ।
मेरा नाम शाहीन है, मैं मुंबई में रहती हूँ। मैं दुबई में काम के लिए एजेंट को पैसा देकर गई थी। कुछ साल काम करने के बाद मुझे पता चला मेरे हस्बैंड को कैंसर हो गया है। मैं इंडिया में आना चाहती थी इलाज के लिए। मैं इंडिया आती तो उनका इलाज करती। मैंने एजेंट से कांटेक्ट की और मुझसे 1,10,000 रुपये मांग रहा था। मैं कहाँ से देती? तो मुझे पता चला रेडियो का। मैंने काउंसिलर के ज़रिए धनश्री मैडम और गिरीश सर से कांटेक्ट की। वो लोगों की मदद से मैं इंडिया आई। आने के बाद 5 महीने के बाद मेरा हस्बैंड ऑफ हो गया। अगर वो लोग नहीं होते तो मैं, धनश्री मैडम और गिरीश सर नहीं होते तो मैं इंडिया नहीं आ पाती।
जी, मेरा नाम राकेश पाटिल, मैं इंडिया बॉम्बे से हूँ। पिछले 4 महीने से मैं सऊदी अरेबिया में फंसा हुआ था और कोई ऑप्शन नहीं था मुझे बाहर जाने का। तब मैंने सोशल वर्कर धनश्री पाटिल मैम जी को कॉल किया और उनकी जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है रेडियो के थ्रू उन्होंने मुझे बहुत हेल्प की। और ज्ञानेश्वर मूले जो कि फॉर्मर सेक्रेटरी ऑफ इंडियन एक्सटर्नल अफेयर्स है, उन्होंने भी मुझे हेल्प की और वो भी उस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन से जुड़े हुए हैं। और इंडियन एम्बेसी के महेंद्र कुमार, लेबर डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ जिद्दा के, उनके लिए भी थैंक्स बोलना चाहता हूँ। थैंक यू सो मच मैम एंड थैंक यू रेडियो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन।
Light, please. We just watched this feedback of those who were in need, but I'm very happy to share that these people, after coming back to India, have joined radio and they want to inform others so that others do not face such situation. The video of seafarers that we just watched after returning to India, they saved 3 more gentlemen like them within 10 days. Helping one person is as good as helping an entire family. We appeal the citizen to join the noble cause. Once again, I am very grateful to Dr. Gnaneshwar Mule sir for giving me this opportunity to be a part of this movement. Thank you, Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, Ms. Patil. It was lovely having you here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, आगे बढ़ते हैं and we have a testimonial of rescued Indians video to be played. So let's have a quick look at the video.
We have gathered here today
जो आपने अभी चलाया था Ladies and gentlemen, we have a video of our Minister VK Singh.
For a very, very noble cause. And I would like to compliment Dhaneshwar Dubey, who has been our secretary and ambassador, presently member of the National Human Rights Commission, for this particular initiative. Initiative of positivity, initiative which goes beyond what the government can do. Please do understand. We have got almost 3 crore of our own people who work abroad. Whether they are white collar jobs, whether they are blue collar jobs, whether they are visiting, whether they are touring, all which is actually a number much larger than 3 crores. Now, when these people go abroad, there can be many problems that they may encounter. From a simple thing like losing your passport, then they have to run around. Yes, the consulates and the embassies do their work. They also assist people. But there is a need to put our shoulders behind whatever effort the government is making. Since 2014, one thing which has happened under the government led by Honorable Narendra Modi ji is that any Indian who goes abroad has the confidence that if he gets into trouble, he will be rescued. He will be taken out. Whether, and they've seen it, whether it was Yemen, whether it was Libya, whether it was Ukraine, whether it was Georgia, you name a country, wherever our people got into trouble, we got into that. What is important is when an organization like this gets to help the government, then things get much more empathy, things get much more magnified in terms of the effect that it has. And I would like to say that each one of you who's sitting there is somebody who will be revered by people who will rescue. And this rescuing can be for many causes, whether it is somebody's employer is not behaving, somebody is run out of various options when he wants to come back. Many things, many situations. A lot of things get tackled by the government embassy, but a lot of things require a human touch, which this organization of positivity will provide. I once again compliment Dhaneshwar Modi. I will also compliment each one of you who has come for this program. Thank you very much. Jai.
Well, let's have a big round of applause for our Honorable Minister who's not here, for our Honorable Minister VK Singh, Minister of Road Transport and Highways, and of course Minister of Civil Aviation. जोरदार तालियां बजाते हैं सर के लिए. Moving on to the next person, I like to call Mr. Abdul Jalil, Radio Advisor UAE, to kindly join us here on the stage. A very warm welcome, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Honorable Minister of State for External Affairs and Culture of India, Srimati Meenakshi Lekhi ji, former ambassador and member of Human Rights Commission, Dr. Mule sir, distinguished guests sitting in the dais, and advisors of REDIO who works across the world. It is really pleasure for being part of this auspicious occasion of the launch of REDIO, and I take this opportunity to congratulate Dr. Mule sir for such a wonderful initiative and would like to thank him for the opportunity to work for REDIO as an advisor from UAE. I am Abdul Jalil Mangalat, CEO of Seagull International, one of the biggest workforce recruitment company from Asian region, and I frequently interact with the Indian migrant workers. I have been asked to talk on the subject of the challenges and problems facing the migrant workers in GCC countries. Almost 8.5 million Indian citizens reside and do jobs in the Gulf nations like UAE, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, Oman, and Bahrain. If we see the patterns of migration, earlier majority of the migration was from Kerala, but now the migrations of skilled and semi-skilled workers are from Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Punjab, Orissa, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, and Telangana. The major challenges the immigrants are facing: unpaid or low wages, forced labors, and dangerous working condition, improper or inadequate food, and unsanitary accommodation facilities are too often part and parcel of the immigration experience. Improper treatment towards the Indian workers by the employers are a major issue in GCC. Some companies lie and promise false wages to the illiterate and untrained laborers, also put them in overcrowded labor camps and forcing them to do 12 to 15 hours jobs without overtime. Other issue is norms are not being followed. The states where migrant laborers are reside in the Gulf constantly neglect to hold fast to the ILO's Declaration on Fundamental Principles and Right at Work. Another challenge is no systematic mechanism. There is no functioning authority in India which keeps track of job opportunities and about the educational opportunities of people who are out of India. The government of India should have a mechanism to keep watch over the private companies who are recruiting Indian workers. As a result, there are many cases in which they are misleading or companies fail to keep their promises. There is no data of migrant workers traveling abroad on ECNR passports. Another biggest threat is mushrooming unscrupulous recruitment agents. These illegal agents are recruiting both ECR and ECNR categories by placing advertisement in several Indian newspapers, social media, and online portals. They are deploying the immigrants on visit visa by promising that this will be converted into employment visa once they reach destination country. But unfortunately, they are getting cheated by the agents and not keeping the promises. I request our government to ensure migrant workers have adequate living condition and make sure everyone is fairly paid, and ensure people should get health care and sick pay. Also to ensure access to information in detail. India needs to formulate migration-centric policies, strategies, institutional mechanism in order to ensure inclusive growth and development to reduce distress-induced migration, thereby increasing India's prospects for poverty reduction and achieving the sustainable development goals. The government should maintain accurate data and a record of the migrant workers work in different countries to keep check on them in case they overstay illegally in the destination countries. Protector of immigrants should be posted at the embassies and the consulate of GCC countries. Unfortunately, our POE is based in India, and no POE representative are based in the embassies and consulates. A special cell to be opened to address all the issues related to the migrant workers and enough staff to be posted in all the Indian mission abroad to completely focus migrants' safety and security as well as to quickly solve grievance of migrants. I hope our government will take necessary steps to solve these problems for the low-waged migrants issues. Precaution is better than a cure. I am sure that REDIO will grow as the biggest NGO of the country in near future by extending the helping hands to citizens of India who live across the globe. I conclude my speech here and I thank you all. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Jalil. It was lovely having you here. So now, ladies and gentlemen, we have video messages from Indian ambassadors from Poland, Canada, Lebanon, and Fiji. Let's have a look at the video.
Namaskar and good evening to all of you. It is indeed my great privilege and honor to join you all from the beautiful islands of Fiji on this very important occasion where we have gathered to launch a mission rescuing every distressed Indian overseas, or REDIO in short. This is a very welcome and timely initiative. Indian diaspora is one of the largest in the world. As you know, Government of India gives the highest priority and focus to the welfare of diaspora around the world. Therefore, diaspora welfare-related work is a core aspect of the work that is being done by the Indian missions and consulates around the world. A number of schemes are being implemented currently by the Indian missions and Indian agencies, covering all aspects: pre-departure, assistance during their stay abroad, and also when they return home finally after their stay abroad. But unfortunately, for a variety of reasons, the information, proper awareness regarding this welfare program and assistance that is being provided by the Government of India are not available with the intended target group. The last mile gap is due to a number of reasons, but it is important that fellow diaspora get into this and ensure that the last mile gap is closed. In this regard, this initiative to systematically bring in the diaspora to help bridge the last mile gap and to supplement the efforts of the Government of India and Indian embassies and consulates abroad is a very noble initiative. I compliment the team behind this initiative and wish them all success in their endeavor. Thank you, Chairman.
As regards the precautions that Indians should take while visiting Poland and Lithuania, I would say the most important thing is, of course, to follow the law. Have your visas in order, have your papers in order, and follow the COVID instructions as they apply to the country. That is, of course, the most important thing. In general, I've had one big meeting with Indian students and I've heard their issues. They mostly relate to the usual student kind of things, accommodation and tuition fee waiver, things like that. And of course, this possibility help. But as regards stranded Indians, we are able to do this with the alertness of the Indian community here, who keep track of what is happening sometimes, because the Indians will tell us that, okay, there seem to be Indians in distress, there are students in distress. So it's often been a combined effort between the embassy and other members of the Indian community, and I'm grateful for that. And we've been together being of service to Indians in distress at the moment.
Namaskar. I'm delighted to join you at this global launch of the REDIO initiative designed to help distressed Indians. This is a commendable civil society initiative which underlines that we are all in it together. Governments, civil society, Indian communities overseas. We have the same objective of helping our citizens when they are abroad. Over the last few years, we've seen a strong sensitivity in India's missions and consulates abroad to look after the welfare of Indian nationals and help those in distress. In this task of helping Indian citizens, we have a strong ally in the Indian diaspora in Canada. the Indian community organizations who are also concerned about and willing to help their brothers and sisters in trouble. To give the example of Canada, we have 1.7 million people of Indian heritage who are Canadian citizens and an additional up to 1 million Indian passport holders who come here on work permits or permanent residency or student or tourist visas. India is the biggest source country in all these sectors, the biggest source of human capital for Canada. We saw this crisis of stranded Indians when the pandemic broke out in 2020. The missions, the consulates, the community organizations in Canada geared up to help stranded nationals who were mainly students. And soon India started the Vande Bharat flights in the special air bubble. We saw recently the tragedy of an Indian family who lost their lives in the cold in Manitoba. This event highlights the kind of extremely dangerous situations Indians could face abroad when they migrate. We coordinated closely with Canadian authorities and community organizations to help the bereaved family. The long-term problem this underlines is the need for systems that make immigration a happy, a legal, a safe and secure experience. What we need at the levels of government perhaps is initiatives like mobility partnership agreements which promote legal immigration and discourage illegal acts. We also need to jointly investigate smuggling and trafficking rackets of humans. But civil society and the REDIO initiative can be very strong partners for our missions abroad in helping fellow citizens. We need to work out operational ideas in this broad initiative where missions and the local Indian communities are supported by civil society in India to help our citizens overseas. The REDIO initiative, I think, exemplifies the need for an active approach to achieve this synergy, and I wish all success to the Indian Diaspora Club in this new India. Namaskar.
Launch of REDIO, Rescuing Every Distressed Indians Overseas, is a great public initiative to help and support the Indian diaspora in distress. Having served in Saudi Arabia for 5 years, and having served in the Middle East and the Gulf region for more than 10 years, I have seen very closely the desperation and the problems faced by our community in these countries, especially the workers. There are occasions when the workers lose their jobs, false claims are lodged against them, their employers don't renew their work permits. Sometimes they don't get salaries in time. They want to return home, but they can't because their sponsors doesn't allow them to return. There may be harassment, assault, and there are many issues like this. In all such cases, the embassies are fully committed to help the Indian community. There is a fund, Indian Community Welfare Fund, through which we are able to help our people in distress. But the role of the community efforts and the community volunteers in these countries can't be underestimated. I would like to briefly recall one case in recent years which I handled. In 2018 in Saudi Arabia, there was a construction company, J&P, Jonao and Parakavidas. The company went bankrupt. It was an international company registered in UK. The owners were originally from Cyprus, but they were based in Greece and Switzerland. And one fine morning, the top management left the country, and all the workers were left completely helpless. We had more than 5,000 Indian workers spread around the kingdom. The company had no liability because it went into the bankruptcy procedures. All the workers were left without money, no salaries, no compensation. Most of them didn't even have the papers in order to leave the country, as the company had not renewed their accounts. It was a challenging situation. We approached the government of Saudi Arabia for help in getting these workers out of the kingdom. But the challenge was to support these workers till their exit actually materialized. And we had to arrange food and shelter and medical help for all these 5,000 Indian workers. It was a humongous task. And I have no hesitation in saying that the reason we succeeded in ensuring the welfare of these Indian workers was because we took the community along. We mobilized the volunteers.
who worked hand in hand with the embassy to ensure everything was arranged for these workers. And eventually these workers were able to leave the country and reach home safely. But such instances cement my faith in partnership the embassy and the community volunteers need to forge to help our diaspora in distress. We have community volunteers in many countries, but radio is the first global platform to help the Indians. The initiative is headed by Ambassador Dr. Mulay, one of the most distinguished foreign service officers. He has also worked as Secretary CPB and OIA, where he has seen the problems faced by the Indian diaspora very closely. I myself had a good fortune of working under Ambassador Mulay long back in Damascus, and I have learned a lot from him. But the two most important things I learned from him are simplicity and the humility in whatever we do. And I have no doubt that with him on the top, radio will become the top platform to help the Indian diaspora in distress and will greatly complement the efforts of Indian embassies and missions across the globe. It is a very welcome initiative and I wish it all the success. I also compliment the Indian Diaspora Club for being part of this initiative. I look forward to working closely with radio wherever opportunities arise. Jai Hind.
So let's have a big round of applause for the Indian ambassadors from Poland, Canada, Lebanon and Fiji, ladies and gentlemen. So अब मैं बहुत ही गर्व से और बहुत ही सम्मान से स्वागत करना चाहूँगी Ambassador Mukul, IFS and former Ambassador to Oman and Dean Foreign Service Institute Delhi. सर सबसे पहले तो आपका एक बार फिर से स्वागत है and मैं सर से दरख्वास्त करूँगी कि हम सब के लिए कुछ शब्द कहें.
Honorable Srimati Meenakshi Lekhi, Minister of State for External Affairs, His Excellency Dr. Ralph Heckner, Ambassador of Switzerland to India, my colleague Ambassador Dr. Dhyaneshwar Mule, Member National Human Rights Commission, my colleague Ambassador Gurjeet Singh, dignitaries on the dais, leading lights from the civil society and NGO community in the audience, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, let me say how absolutely delighted I am to be participating in the formal launch of this mission, rescuing every distressed Indian overseas or radio. It is most appropriate that this volunteer-based NGO is being launched to coincide with 75 years of India's independence in the framework of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. I would like to congratulate and compliment my friend and colleague, Ambassador Dr. Dhaneshwar Mule, and his team for this noble and laudable initiative to assist distressed Indians across the globe. Ladies and gentlemen, India has the largest diaspora community. There's hardly any country, I think there's no country where there are no Indians. We count 31 million strong diaspora community comprising of both persons of Indian origin as well as the non-resident Indians. Indians have been hugely successful abroad. In fact, the Indian community is considered a force or factor of strategic stability in many host countries. Indians are valued for their technological prowess and technical skills. They are amongst the most law-abiding and the least crime-prone. In a nutshell, the Indian diaspora community is the preferred community, which also explains the large numbers abroad. So if it is the Indian community, it is the preferred diaspora community or preferred foreign community by host countries, then why the distress? And as has been pointed out, including in the message from the ambassadors, it is just a few stakeholders, both here in India and abroad, who are responsible for this distress. The proverbial bad apples. In this context, diaspora issues and overseas Indian affairs are an integral part of India's foreign policy and diplomatic profile. India's effort has been to ensure consistently ensure legal, regular, and organized migration. As part of this regime, there are two main aspects. One is the regulatory aspect, from the issue of passports to the machinery of the Protector General of Immigrants. The other is the welfare aspect of our compatriots abroad through the consular and labor and community welfare sections of our missions and posts. While the well-educated and well-off could by and large look after their interests, it is the weakest sections of our society abroad, the unskilled, semi-skilled, and skilled labor that experience the most distress and therefore need government support. This is what has come to be known as the ABCD phenomenon, or the segment of ayahs, butlers, cooks, drivers, and all those who are involved with manual labor, who felt the most distress and thus needed maximum support. The government and the ministry, through its missions and posts abroad, has exerted tremendous efforts for the welfare of the Indian community, and this has come a long way. From my first stint in 1988 in Abu Dhabi, where the Indian embassies did not even have a locus standi vis-a-vis the local government, till the time I left in 2015, I think we had made a lot of progress. But clearly, the government alone cannot do everything. While they have been doing a lot, they have been empowering the Indian missions by setting up, we have heard references to the Indian Community Welfare Fund, which has been revised, revamped, expanded in scope to meet the challenges and distress of our community. There is the pre-departure training and briefings, which have been arranged so that our labor goes abroad safer. The popular saying of, प्रशिक्षित जाएं, सुरक्षित जाएं, विश्वास के साथ जाएं. And technology has also helped in ameliorating or alleviating the difficulties and distress and providing transparency. For example, the e-migrate portal or the platform for transportation of mortal remains. But as I said, government's efforts alone are not enough or cannot address all the distress and provide all solutions. The diaspora distress arises in distinct foreign contexts, in diverse situations, in different circumstances, requiring differentiated responses to meet specific challenges. One size fits all cannot work. There is a need for constant innovation and improvisation on the ground. And it is obvious that there is space for civil society. There's not just space, but also I believe it is indeed a felt need for the civil society and NGOs to complement and supplement the government effort in addressing distress. And it is initiatives like REDIO that can play a valuable role and make a difference. And therefore, I wish this initiative all success. I would like to conclude with a word of caution, though. The guiding principle or the touchstone should be the spirit of service and not recognition. Obviously, with service, recognition will come. It has to be a Team India or an India incorporated effort abroad, particularly when we are on foreign shores. There is a need to complement and supplement the efforts of the government and there should not be unnecessary competition among NGOs or even with the embassies and High Commission. I'll explain this with a couple of very brief examples from my own experience. As ambassador in Oman, you know we are dealing with the anti-piracy issues there of the coast of, in the Gulf of Aden, of the coast of Somalia. And we were very happy when after a long period, a group of Indian who had been held hostage by pirates had been rescued and were in Oman on way back to India. Now they were all very well-meaning NGOs, but one state NGO, despite the advice of the embassy, came there, presented gifts to a section of the hostages, not all, And it was a bit awkward for the others. It was a bit awkward for the local government, who were quite amused to see what was happening. So as I said, the effort was well-meaning, it was well-intentioned, but perhaps misdirected. Again, as ambassador of India to the Netherlands, when there was the bombing at the Brussels airport, and a lot of Indians had to be evacuated to Amsterdam, again, we worked with the embassy, with all stakeholders, the airline, the transport companies, the hotels, the local government, the airport authorities, and of course the civil society. But then there was one NGO which suddenly realized that they were missing out on the act. And therefore, after everything had been taken care of, I was present at the hotel till midnight, and in early morning, the manager called me very agitatedly in saying that this NGO of yours insists that they should provide food, and our law does not permit in the hotel food being brought from outside. So the point again is, very well intentioned, with all the right feeling, but again, a bit misguided. So the point I'm making, and please, I can assure you, I have no doubt that radio will not be doing any of this, but I thought this is as good an occasion as any to remind ourselves of this word of caution and circumspection. So it is important, I think, to coordinate and complement and cooperate with Indian missions abroad, especially when we are in a foreign setting. With those words, I wish radio all success in this very noble and its laudable mission. Thank you. Dhanyavad. Jai Hind.
Well, sir, I'd like to extend my sincere gratitude. Thank you so much for coming here. Thank you so much for taking out your time and coming here, in fact. So, moving on to the next special personality, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really, really glad and delighted to be welcoming Ambassador Gurjeet Singh, IFS, former ambassador to Indonesia and Germany. A very, very warm welcome, sir, once again.
Honorable Minister, my dear colleague, Dr. Mule, and my dear friend and colleague, Mr. Mukul, Your Excellency, Ambassador of Switzerland, and distinguished dignitaries, and the wonderful people, and thank you for your patience and your role in helping the Indian diaspora. Mrs. Mule, I must tell you that before you came on the scene, Mule and I had a lady between us. Our Japanese teacher. She's 93 years old and still remembers Mule as a distinguished student of hers. Even in those days when I met Mule for the first time, he was a very empathetic person. So therefore, when he told me about radio, I was not surprised that he was doing it because his empathy always shows. The other thing I would like to say is that the presence of Dr. Mule, Mr. Mukul and I hope it tells you that diplomats never get extinguished. We may not be distinguished anymore, but certainly not extinguished. So I think I fully endorse what Ambassador Mukul has said. So I'm telling him he left me nothing to say. So let me just share with you a few experiences, because I have never served in West Asia, but I have served in West of West Asia. So let me tell you a few examples which will tell you how diverse, and I think Ambassador Mukul mentioned this, how diverse are the demands on embassies. And were embassies ever made competent to deal with that? So I was in Kenya, which has a very dominant Asian community, divided only into 196 associations. Now, trying to unify them was a mug's game. So we learned that there were some important ones, some powerful ones, and they would look after their own. But they would not look after the new Indians who were coming, who very often, as has been explained, the kind of problem, the cause of their problems were these people of Indian origin themselves. Now, this became a very ticklish issue for an embassy to handle. But we used to start handling it and, reaching out socially, trying to say, you can't do this. These are also people from your home country. I mean, you cannot remember your home country when the India development bonds are launched to get 9% dollar interest and then maltreat the Indian you employ. These two can't go together. Very often we needed to shelter people. And there the Gurdwaras of Kenya came up in a big way to open their doors and say, come, we can put you up, but they should tell us about 2 weeks is the maximum. After that, people get used to living free. So let's just try and sort problems out. In those days, we had no embassy in Kinshasa. The country was then called Zaire, today called Democratic Republic of Congo. And I used to cover it from Nairobi. And twice in a period of 2 years, we had to arrange evacuations, which today have become common, but in 1995 were not so common. So I remember, fortunately, going there before anything happened and meeting the Indian community, which, to my surprise, had 3,000 people. And almost all belonged to the Ismaili community. But then slowly there were new expatriates coming who were not in touch with this community. So the embassy, through these visits, arranged that touch, that the Ismailis are very well organized, but we must make sure that they become responsible for every Indian who the embassy is responsible for. So the Ismailis had proper list and phone number of every Indian in Kinshasa and the whole country. And it's a big country, I tell you. And they knew how to contact them. They had, people in charge of blocks. And they told me, we don't need anything. When the time for evacuation comes, we have already paid a charter company who will send their plane and take us out. All we need are armed escorts and we need permissions. So I went to the French embassy. In West Africa, the French are the big daddies. And the French said, you are not our priority. Go to the Americans. So I went to the Americans. The Americans said, give me 2 days. And he said, in 2 days' time, we have decided among us that when the Indians need to be evacuated, the British will provide you all this. So I gave the community these links to the British, and twice we had to arrange, and both times the British provided the armed escorts and got them the permissions. So I think that is how an embassy could play. But fortunately, the embassy was lucky that for nothing I had to go back to the ministry and ask for anything. Because sometimes that is the bigger challenge, rather than trying to get things done. Let me give another example, and I'll tell you why this is a challenge. Italy. In Italy, I was told there were only a few thousand Indians. But when you went to a Gurdwara, and then I found there were 26 Gurdwaras in 2003. Half the year, every Sunday I was in a Gurdwara. And there were kabaddi tournaments. That is how we came to know that there are about 50,000 Indians. And we didn't even know about them. So we said, why don't we know about them? Exactly. Illegal, they don't have passports. So my consular says, they are not Indian. Okay. But we managed to work with them to form groups and say, at least talk to each other, make list. In case of a crisis, you know where to come. They used to have a problem that every 3 years, the Italian government declared an amnesty. And then they all became Indian. And they all turned up at your door, say, give me a letter saying I'm Indian, which as per the book, you can't give. So we had empathetic officials like Mr. Mule in Delhi at that time. We discussed with them a paper which would satisfy the Italians that they were Indian, but yet not give them an Indian passport, because till we were satisfied they were Indian. So this via media was found, which allowed them all to get legal status in Italy. And once they got the legal status, then they all pulled out copies of their old passports, which earlier they hid, and said, here they are, now give me my passport back. And enterprising fellows. This whole thing is well documented in a book by Pallavi Iyer called Punjabi Parmesan. Because these fellows are all in agriculture, they make the best Parmesan cheese. They also make the best Grand Padano, the best mozzarella, but the book is called Punjabi Parmesan. A third example I must give you is in Germany. Now, you heard about Ukraine, what's happening. We are trying to get students out. So now, not only do you have Indians everywhere, you have Indian students everywhere. And in Germany, from 4,000 students, we have gone to 25,000 now. Most of them don't feel the need to associate with the embassy because they get good stipend, they are well looked after, and they don't think Germany will ever have a crisis. I used to go to some universities and meet top-notch Indian people doing postdoctoral research, all in scientific subjects which were beyond me. But none of them understood why I didn't know they are here, because they said when we came, immigration took our details. The fact that that is German immigration and we are the Indian embassy is something which the scientific mind could not comprehend. And they felt all information is one, whereas actually it is severely divided. Now, there what we did was we realized that no need for us to poke our nose into student affairs. We funded the students to set up their own portal and say, you create a student's body among all students in, let the embassy stay out, but we'll fund you. And you set up that portal, sort out their problems. Most problems were not related to the embassy. But if there is a problem with the embassy, we will do. But I said today the government of India has programs like Gyan, where we want diaspora people who are in eminent positions to come back to India and teach. I said, where am I going to find them unless they register with us? So this portal then became our go-to strength to go there. So in each case, we had a mule or a mukul back home to help us in each of these initiatives. Thank you for your patience listening.
Well, I'd like to extend my heartfelt appreciation to the Ambassador, Gurjeet Singh. Sir, thank you so much for coming here. Let's have a round of applause for him once again, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we have special video messages from Radio Overseas Advisors. So let's have a look on the video.
Everybody. The concept of radio was born with the vast experience of Mr. Murray, having been associated with many Indians across the globe. With the help of government officials of India and the people from the country of residence, if you can give them some assistance, that ray of hope will really make a lot of difference in the life of those people who are under stress. They will be stabilized physically, mentally, and economically.
Greetings from Warsaw, Poland. My name is Jagadeshwar Rao Madhukuri. I have been living in Warsaw for almost 37 years. I came here as a student in 1985, and in those days we used to have a very small Indian community, almost like 15 to 20 people. Most of them are students. In those days, we used to work and live very closely with the Indian Embassy as a family. And since that time, the community has grown up to almost 15 to 20,000 people, Indians living in Warsaw, living in Poland. As we grow, as the community grows, also issues and challenges also do keep coming. One student who had difficulties and joined the hospital, but he didn't have insurance. So again, embassy came to rescue, and then we organized support and help for his family. In the third case, again, another student who was having mental distress and worked with another friend of mine to send him, to convince him and to send back to India. So that saved a lot of trouble for him and also his family. I'm very happy to see the radio initiative started by Dr. Mule, and I hope I can contribute and working with the community and also with the embassy as a partnership that can help each other so that the help is reached when it is necessary. Thank you for the opportunity, and I'm happy to be the advisor for radio initiatives. Thank you.
Namaskar. My name is Puran Jeswani. I am honored to be advisor for Radio Team China. First of all, I would like to take opportunity to thank the founders of Radio Platform. It will definitely give us support, though we are working very closely with Beijing Embassy and the Consul General Offices of Guangzhou and Shanghai. But this will give us a proper mechanism to work together. We should be having some fund set up for the emergency, for the casualties, for the people who cannot pay their expenses, medical expenses in critical cases. Number two is we are going to have Indian Chamber of Commerce for the business community to have proper support any kind of disputes or business disputes. Here I would like to mention that we need support from our concerned departments or MEA for helping us to come out from this kind of issues. And more serious concern is now about the three categories of our brothers and sisters who are stranded in India or out of China. So we would require support from concerned department and MEA to take up this matter and help us to bring our people come back to China.
Namaskar. I'm Sarita Patnaik, Mrs. India Worldwide, 2017-18, an active member of Team Radio. I'm really proud of the work undertaken by Radio to rescue the distressed Indians across the globe. In fact, they have reached out to many Indians in my country, US, who were once stranded and have been successfully repatriated to India. Even during the pandemic lockdown period, they have rescued many Indian workers in air and other countries.
Hello friends, my name is Mukund Purohit. I'm a proud member of an organization called REDIO. I'm from Canada. I got this opportunity to help my Indo-Canadian community if they need any help. The most important and the most worried for me is the students from Gujarat, from Punjab, and almost all over India. The kids go there for higher education and then they suffer a lot. They did not get proper job. They did not select a proper college or university online. They did not take the right guidance from the people, and then they face a lot of problems. I heard a lot of stories, and we read in the media that some people suicide, some people are in deep depression, some people don't even have. It's very painful to say that many senior citizens or parents also face a lot of problems. I wish this will stop. I wish this will not happen. But our team, our seniors will definitely help to guide them, to support them, to bring them back to India.
Let's have a big round of applause for all the radio advisors. Okay, so, ladies and gentlemen, it's my absolute pleasure to welcome His Excellency, Dr. Ralph Heckner, Ambassador of Switzerland to India. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and welcome him. Swagatam, sir.
You're too kind. Honourable Minister of State, Meenakshi Lekhi, it's a great pleasure to be with you. It is also a great pleasure to be with so eminent Indian ambassadors and high commissioners, Ambassador Muley, Ambassador Mukul, Ambassador Singh. It's also a pleasure to be with you, Mr. Kapoor and Mrs. Patil from REDIO. Ladies and gentlemen, you might ask yourself, why is the Swiss ambassador here? I will try to give you my perspective on the mission of REDIO, which is rescuing every distressed Indian overseas, and I hope that after my 7.5 minutes, you will understand why rescuing Indians in distress overseas is important for the Swiss ambassador in Switzerland. I will look at today's topic from my perspective as a historian. I used to study Switzerland's history in the 19th century, and I will give you my perspective as a Swiss diplomat. I was the head of the Swiss Crisis Management Center, and with that I looked after Swiss people in quite extreme distress abroad, and I was also in charge of Switzerland's human rights foreign policy. And there I was in charge to come up and put together Switzerland's first UPR. This is the Universal Periodic Review, and that is the human rights report that each country has to establish and then present to the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva. So let's have a look at Switzerland's history. I always try to have a look in history to try and find lessons for me and maybe us today. So if you have a look at Switzerland's history, you will see lots of immigration from Switzerland, especially in the 19th century until World War I. And I learned of Swiss people from the same valley where I come from that went to Latin America. And there they were subjected to what is called indentured labor. Indentured labor means that they lived in servitude, a kind of slavery for years in exchange for the passage that they received and were paid for from Switzerland to Latin America. So the Swiss government had to intervene in the 1860s for the Swiss people in distress in Brazil. If I have a look in Switzerland's history in the 19th century, I also see migrants from abroad in Switzerland in distress. In the 1870s, Italian tunnel workers, Switzerland was building a huge tunnel through the Swiss Alps, were living and working in pitiful conditions. And when the Italian tunnel workers went on strike, the Swiss police fired at them. Some of them died. So the Italian government had to intervene for their Italian migrants in Bern. So what is my first lesson that I take out from here? So, and you have seen Switzerland was a country of emigration and a country of immigration already in the 19th century. So my lesson here is, if you want to see your own citizens being treated correctly and humanely abroad, you should also treat the immigrants in your own country in a correct and humane manner. Now, if I have a look at today's founding of this important NGO, from my perspective as a former head of Crisis Management Center, I had to deal with kidnapping cases, with terror attacks, with burning cruise ships, and with typhoons and Swiss involved in these situations. So what we did was we tried our utmost to help our Swiss people in these crisis situations. But we asked also ourselves, how could we prevent that Swiss citizens would end up in those situations in the first place? And it was said by Ambassador Mukul and Mr. Jalel how important it is to inform our citizens before they travel abroad. So the Swiss Federal Department of Foreign Affairs has a so-called travel advice. And that travel advice is informing the Swiss people about safety and security risks in any given country of this planet. But we went a step further. We also had a look into another way of preventing Swiss people ending up in dire situations abroad. We hammered out a law, and that law outlined the rights but also the duties of Swiss citizens abroad. And the most important political message that this new law, this act on Swiss people abroad, sent out to the Swiss people was that every citizen living and traveling abroad is primarily responsible for his and her safety and security. We enshrined the concept of self-responsibility in that law. We have free citizens, but they are also self-responsible. That was a new concept enshrined in that law. So what is my second lesson, based on my experience as head of Crisis Management Center? Our citizens must be empowered through information for their travels and stays abroad. The travel advice is one tool. But it must be clear that our citizens are in charge of their lives and with that also fully responsible for their decisions to travel abroad and to live abroad. That means also that you inform yourself better. Now, let me have a look at today's launch of REDIO from the perspective of a Swiss diplomat who once was in charge of Switzerland's human rights foreign policy. Many of the reasons why an Indian or a Swiss citizen could face distress abroad is because his or her rights were violated. So we were talking about labor rights. They were violated because of exploitative work conditions. We also find that our citizens might not be in a position to cherish and use their freedom of religion. So this explains why Switzerland believes that human rights matter. And they matter to all Swiss people and foreigners in Switzerland, and they matter to all Swiss abroad, and they matter to all countries and all citizens on this planet. And this is why Switzerland is trying to strengthen human rights at home, abroad, bilaterally and multilaterally. And when it comes to the multilateral world, Switzerland and India will undergo the UPR in 2022, India, and at the beginning of 2023, Switzerland. And that is a perfect occasion to have a look into our own human rights situation and also have a friendly look into the human rights situation of our other UN member countries, in order to improve on our own human rights situation. It was thanks to one recommendation of the Indian government in the UPR cycle, the first one, that we could start to improve on our human rights situation. India has a National Human Rights Commission. Switzerland has not a National Human Rights Commission. But thanks to the recommendation to establish one, we could at least establish a competency center for human rights. And if everything works out well, at the end of this year, Switzerland will have a fully fledged National Human Rights Commission. So I'm here to thank the Indian government for a good recommendation. And this is my third lesson, based on my experience as Office Director for Human Rights Policy. The more human rights are upheld over the world, the less likely will our citizens fall into distress. And the UPR, the Universal Periodic Review, is a great tool to improve on the human rights and to improve the rights of all our citizens on the planet. You are founding an NGO today, and you have eminent representatives of the Indian government and the Ministry of External Affairs here. We can only work for our citizens abroad and prevent that they fall into distress if we work in partnership. And that is one of the Sustainable Development Goals. And I would like to give you, in conclusion, an example of how the Swiss government tries to work in partnership on also Indian citizens in distress abroad. The Swiss Development Corporation runs programs in a number of countries addressing the needs of vulnerable migrants. We are, for example, active in the Middle East. Our Middle East is your West Asia, to strengthen labor protection. We work with governments, we work with the United Nations organization, especially with the International Labour Organization. We work with civil society, and we work with the private sector, with the businesses and companies. We invest also in policy-oriented research on labor migration in the region. And all these activities are directly aimed to improve the situation of South Asian migrants. Together, we can help our citizens abroad, and I would like to commend REDIO for this important civil society initiative, and I wish you much success. Thank you for having invited me.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanking His Excellency Dr. Heckner for giving us his presence. Once again, let's have a big, big round of applause for Dr. Heckner. So, yet another video coming up from an advisor from REDIO. So, let's have a look.
नमस्कार, मेरा नाम गिरीश पंत, प्रवासी भारतीय सम्मान अवार्डी 2019 यूएई से। रेडियो हम लोग ने अभी पिछले कुछ महीनों पहले ही यूएई से 3 समुद्र में जो भारतीय फंसे थे उनको निकालने की कोशिश करी और एक हिमाचल के एक व्यक्ति को निकाला। उसके अलावा 15 भारतीय जो मुंबई के एक एजेंट के द्वारा यहाँ पे फंस गए थे उनको भी हमने यहाँ से निकाला। रेडियो की टीम एक साथ भारतीय दूतावास और भारतीय वाणिज्य के साथ मिलकर काम करती है और भारत सरकार के साथ मिलकर काम करती है और उनके साथ संपर्क में होने के साथ साथ हम लोग पूरे अन्य विदेशों में भी जो भी भारतीय फंसा है उनको निकालने की कोशिश करते हैं। यूएई में सबसे ज्यादा इंडियन रहते हैं, मोर देन 3.5 मिलियन, और यहाँ की समस्याएं भी कुछ इस तरह हैं कि यहाँ पे जो लोग एजेंटों के झांसे में आके फंस जाते हैं या समुद्र में भारतीय फंस जाते हैं या फ्रॉड केस में फंसते हैं या फेक वीजा, किसी ने फेक ऑफर लेटर दिया है, हाउसमेट का इशू है और सुसाइड का केस होते हैं। कुछ लोग जो गलत संगतों के कारण और अगर किसी एजेंटों के माध्यम से किसी भी जालसाजी में यहाँ फंसते हैं तो वो जेलों में सजाएं काटते हैं। लेकिन यहाँ की सरकार के संपर्क के साथ हम लोग रेडियो टीम के साथ मिलकर उन लोगों को भारत भेजने का काम करते हैं। इसके लिए आप सभी से आशा है, आप सभी से यही रिक्वेस्ट है कि हमारे साथ जुड़िए और किसी भी भारतीय को कहीं पे कोई समस्या है तो रेडियो से संपर्क करें। जय हिंद, जय भारत।
Well, thanking the radio advisor, let's have a big round of applause for him. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the time has come जिसके लिए हम सब आज यहाँ इकट्ठा हुए हैं. Yes, I am talking about the grandeur launch of mission rescuing every distressed Indian overseas. तो यहाँ पे हमारे बीच में माननीय मंत्री जी मौजूद हैं और डिग्निटरीज जो बैठे हैं, मैं सभी से दरख्वास्त करूँगी कि वो एक बार खड़े हो जाएं और रेडियो लोगों को लॉन्च करें. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all give a huge round of applause and launch the logo of REDIO. Can we have a huge round of applause all together, everybody? Thank you, everybody. And congratulations to the radio team, of course. तो चलिए आगे बढ़ते हैं और अब मैं बहुत ही सम्मान से और गर्व से बुलाना चाहूँगी Ambassador Dhaneshwar Mule sir, IFS and member National Human Rights Commission. Sir, आपसे दरख्वास्त है कि आप यहाँ आए और हम सबसे कुछ बातचीत करें.
Well, namaskar and good evening to everyone. I'm sure all of you feel energetic and absolutely, what should I say, well ready to serve our country. I'm personally very moved, ma'am, with your presence here at a very short notice after a fairly long campaign trail in Punjab, straight to our rescue. And certainly Ambassador Hefner, great to have you here. We did want somebody from the international community to be present and see what we're doing and say how we can have collaborative, efforts now on. Ambassador Mukul and Ambassador Gurjit Singh both have, given some very fascinating aspects and interesting suggestions, including caution too. Very, very useful for us in our journey, and really thank you very much. Dhanashri is really, you must have seen, this is a very simple but very formidable lady from Maharashtra. All the way she has come here. She represents the mountains, strength of the mountains of Maharashtra, Sahyadri. Thank you, Dhanashri, for all your efforts. And Sanjay Prashar, all the way from Himachal, but spread activity, all over his activities are spread all over the world. And he's not only making us proud, not only making proud Himachal, but I think as a humanity, he is representing the cause that REDIO stands for. Rajat, who has been also one of the pillars of this entire initiative, is also here to support us today. And many distinguished friends in the audience. मैं सबके नाम नहीं लूँगा, लेकिन आप सबका तहे दिल से स्वागत करता हूँ. What a great pleasure it is. For me, ma'am, I do feel this is an historic moment in a sense, because this initiative has tremendous potential. And tremendous potential not necessarily only for the welfare of our people, but to tell the world that here is a country which stands for its people. Here are the citizens who stand for their citizens abroad. And here they are together, working hand in hand and going beyond all the boundaries of religion, caste, regions. What is the difference between, say, Gopio, Tana, or Rana and other organizations and REDIO? REDIO goes beyond all these differences and announces that we are only one, we are Indians. And we have a kind of a duty to our own people who are abroad. I'm not going through the difficulties that our people have abroad. I have seen it under Madam Sushma Swaraj. I have seen it in my own service in missions abroad. And personally, I'll just give you how complex some of the examples came here. I'll just give you one simple example which tells you how complex this whole thing could be. I was in Moscow as first secretary, ma'am, and I got a call from St. Petersburg, our consulate, saying that such and such lady, Russian lady, she has come to us. She has said that she has lost her husband, so-and-so Mr. Singh from Punjab. And her story is that he was a taxi driver. They've been staying married here for 12 years or so. And that he passed away last evening because he was sitting in the car in the freezing cold. And he was being a taxi driver, he had to be in the car, and asphyxiation was the cause of the death. Now, she had never seen him going back home. But she had, he had the photographs displayed in the house with her. And of course, his passport was also there. So they wanted to trace the relatives in India. She was very keen that the relatives in India, back home, friends, get to know. Because this gentleman talked so much about his village, about his life in Punjab. And we then got the details, tried to connect with India on the address in the village. And we were told that so-and-so had never gone abroad. He is happily living in the village. And, we really don't know. Just imagine. what kind of tragedies are there in this small story, and how did it happen? Who trafficked him? Why did he have this compulsion to hide his name or identity all along, even from his wife, while talking all the time about back home memories? This is just one example. I went to Maldives. There are 40 Indians languishing there in the jails there. We made a lot of efforts. I got each of their stories recorded, documented, and we realized that almost 2/3 of them can be sent back to India. Now, Home Ministry has to identify that they're Indians. How do they do it? They write to the states, state home ministries, and the state home ministries will verify. Do you think, ma'am, it's really possible? I could not repatriate a single Indian despite we having a exchange agreement. We got it done. And this might be not only with Maldives, this must be with all the countries. And these people, many of them are languishing for no reason. I'm not saying that Ambassador Hefner's advice is wrong, that we are all responsible. We should be responsible. But do you know what kind of people often go abroad? They're ignorant as to what are their duties, what is their prescription, what is their job. They go often on the visitor visa. Right now, I have a case with us, somebody, middle-class families do travel these days to places like Singapore or Thailand or Dubai. One of them has met with had a heart attack, heavy, bleeding, internal bleeding, and the bill is 70 lakh rupees because the person had to undergo, emergency operation. Now, we don't know. It is not covered by ICWF. No one individual can come forward to, give. So we're wondering whether consulate can give us a certificate कि भाई please, माफ कर दो इसका पूरा जो पैसा है वो कुछ nominal लेके छोड़ दो. These are the circumstances. The other circumstances we did not talk about was about the marital discords and abuse, particularly of women. Abuse of our women in, for example, Gulf countries by the employers, physical abuse, mental abuse, sexual abuse, torture. These things often, don't get reported. Students, in US alone, we have 100,000 students going every year. I must say, ma'am, that we made a provision in the ICWF saying that ambassadors must hold one reception every year for our students. We almost made it compulsory and provided funds in the ICWF. So these are very interesting, complicated, difficult challenges that we have as we grow, and I want to be at the leading table in the Committee of Nations. And this is one effort where we want to energize the empowered people in India as well as those among diaspora. We can't avoid this problem. 30 million people are there. At least 17 million still hold Indian citizenship. In USA alone, they are the wealthiest community there. We can really have a self-sufficient mechanism. Independent, I'm not saying independent in the sense of independent, but in terms of looking after the needs of our own countrymen abroad. And therefore, the effort is to complement the government, not substitute government efforts. It is when government cannot do things, the community must come, and come, I would say in a very, very awakened manner, enlightened manner. It's that as if it's duty. I'll just tell you what is the value addition that REDIO is going to have. One is emergency help can't wait for ICWF. Number two is ICWF has ceilings and ceilings which are monetary as well as non-monetary. Missions have limited staff. Everything needed by a distressed person cannot be provided by the mission. India has an empowered diaspora which can play a critical role. Economic migrants sometimes are unaware of the mission's help, rules in the other countries, information about e-migrate, insurance, etc., etc. Poorer Indians going abroad for low-paid jobs. We must remember that. So we will start awareness campaigns for several of these visitors. I had proposed an idea that in airport, we should have small stands where every person who goes to GCC country is briefed just for 15 minutes and given some basic numbers and literature. That provision is there, ma'am. needs to be put in practice if possible. The advisors will coordinate with local Indians, organizations, embassies, local government, as well as Indian governments, local institutions, and Indian states also, because states do play an important role. For example, trafficking we know comes from certain districts in Andhra Pradesh. We need to really focus and address it there on the ground so that we don't face problems later on. All advisors that we have are selected on the basis of their social profile. How much have they helped, what capacity do they have, what personality they have, and not on their economic, so much on their economic qualifications per se. The core team is in India and will be monitoring and helping in solving the glitches, if any, because Government of India has to play a role, state governments have to play a role, so there has to be a coordinating body. So what is the difference between GoPO is this, that this particular unit is kind of a banyan tree. The tree supports the branches and the branches then support the tree. That is the model that we have in REDIO, ma'am. Wherever missions need local assistance, legal assistance, liaising with local authorities like prisons, police stations, municipal, no efforts of embassies or missions are adequate ever. So that is where we can have a more structured interaction with the communities, not necessarily only the people who are working with us, but overall. REDIO will have close to zero financial cost as everyone involved here works as a volunteer. That's again a very special feature of this thing. Migration and travel are essential part. We get about $80 billion from our remittances. About 65% of them comes from poor Indians, not rich Indians. And those people are working in, we have a moral duty to look after them. And that's, I think, a very important point. And then it's different from regional associations, as I said, because it goes beyond region, country, or state-wise organization. Finally, based on my experience, I feel, ma'am, that if India prospers, the diaspora prospers. And if diaspora prospers, India prospers. This is a kind of a mutuality that we have. And therefore, this global launching, I do feel that it has a special meaning. Only a few days back, somebody from one of our advisors in Thailand, he said that somebody in Canada has some issues. And immediately our Canada advisor said that I will look after it, just send me the details. And same day, we were able to solve the problem. So this is also a kind of, because Singaporean Indian diaspora doesn't interact with Indian diaspora in USA. Japanese Indian diaspora doesn't interact with Indian diaspora in Africa. Unless we have, in today's world, communication has become very easy. And this particular effort is also to bring everyone who feels the same way together. That is the larger objective of movement of positivity also. Sarvajana Hitaya, Sarvajana Sukhaya is our motto. And I'm glad, ma'am, that you are blessing us here. I thank all the persons who are here, all the people who have in the audience who come from different places, different cities, and different countries. I thank you all. And last but not the least, I must mention my dear wife here. Whenever I take her name, she's never in the audience. And then she says that, I never acknowledge her. So, so I thank her for being support. Almost every suggestion that she makes, I accept gleefully, happily. Yes. So thank you very much, and please do not go without having your dinner after Madam's speech, for which we are all really eagerly waiting for. Ma'am, thank you very much for taking so much of effort. We are very, very grateful to you, and we will keep on bothering you for good cause. Thank you. Thank you all.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Passport Man of India. Let's have a big round of applause for Dr. Dhaneshwar Mule. Thank you so much, sir. बहुत अच्छा लगता है आपको जब सुनते हैं. Okay, तो जैसा कि सर ने कहा, हमारी मुख्य अतिथि, the chief guest, ladies and gentlemen of this absolutely spectacular evening, we have Srimati Meenakshi Lekhi here with us. तो आइए मैम का स्वागत करते हैं जोरदार तालियों से पोडियम पर. Minister of State for External Affairs and Culture of India. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome her.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mule. Ambassador Mukul, Rajat ji, Excellency Mr. Heckner, Mr. Singh, Ambassador Gurjeet Singh, Dhaneshwari ji, and we have Captain Prasha, ladies and gentlemen. I was just thinking aloud when everybody was speaking, and I said many a times, we can't even acknowledge what we do. Is that not true? And as Ambassador Singh said, that half the time these people are not connecting with the formal setup is because they are scared, they are illegal in that country, and the lure of money and establishment has taken them there. And it's a pitiable condition many ways, because you may try to help, but you are unable to. And they don't understand, if I can use Hindi, it's आगे कुआ पीछे खाई, किधर जाए, arrest हो जाएंगे because of illegal stay, and they are suffering anyways because of the conditions they are working in. So those are the problems, and as an empathetic, sympathetic Indian, it becomes very, very difficult at times to help out people. And the kind of cases which we receive on daily basis, I can discuss some. I can just say that many a times people have died, and to get their mortal remains back home is something we all engage in. But sometimes these are very, very difficult cases. Understanding the system, knowing the law, knowing the foreign laws, understanding the complications, it gets tough at times, even in terms of compensation and things. So one case which is, since Mr. Hackner is sitting here, so at times, you tend to focus on people around you. So I just happen to mention this. Nothing particular to Swiss government or anything, but it's just that one of the cases. So I get an email every alternate day from an elderly person who's in his 70s, whose son in his 20s died sometime back in a lift accident. Now, he was the only source of money for this man sitting in Bihar somewhere, and he hasn't got the compensation. Every time I pass it on to the embassy, our embassy in Switzerland, and every time there is some response which is inadequate, because you need to engage with lawyers there. The matter has to be addressed in the court. Now, ideally, I would say there has to be either the Swiss agencies of their own put some pressure or do something, they can handle it. At times, they just won't do it. At times, our embassy just won't do it. So an agency like REDIO becomes very, very important. If they have a volunteer lawyer sitting in Switzerland who understands the system, takes up the matter in the court, can get the adequate compensation. Because some court for non-follow-up at the county level or whatever level dismiss the case for compensation. Now, obviously, a guy has lost life in an accident of a lift. If I understand the global laws, someone needs to pay for it. Who pays? Either the lift manufacturer or the company who employed, or the government, because it's a tortious liability. Someone from some pocket or combined pocket, the money has to come, or the insurance company, because if he's living in that country, the guy must be insured under some scheme. Unfortunately, neither of the formal systems are able to help. But an elderly man in his 70s, his pitiable condition in India, as a public representative sitting here, kind of puts me in a bind. Apart from the emotional and sentimental aspect of the case, that you definitely get impacted by such cases. Sometimes, and many a times, underage boys and girls have gone on a study visa, some silly university which is unrecognized by law, have died there. At times, some weird cases, drug cases and things like that, overdose and all. Parents here are asking for the dead body. The government there is saying it's a criminal offense. And it's a sad story, but you need the dead body. And you're trying to negotiate, and they say we can't send it because the time is, the matter's still pending in the court. Parents here are asking you. Then there are sometimes pretty sad cases, and sad because all the narratives that I heard just now are the narratives that where immigration and emigration both are happening. And as very rightly put across by Ambassador Hackner, that you need to respect one to sort of mitigate the other. I must mention our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, that ever since he became the Prime Minister, he was absolutely clear that no matter what the circumstances are, Indians need to be helped. And he did it. I mean, he's done it every time. He's just, personally overseen many, many cases, personally asked us. And in a short span, I would say that case like Vishal Jude happened, where he was traveling, he was a student, he was unauthorized, ended up bashing up some people, and that case came out. Then there are kind of disruptive elements all over. Government does many things back end, but at times cannot claim what they've done. And then you have pressure at home where the family is approaching the Chief Minister. Chief Minister very gladly will say, I've spoken to the Mental Department and MOS. So you're kind of in a bind and don't know where to go and what to do. But you do whatever best you can do. Interestingly, I do wish to bring up a story which many people, especially the gentleman from Kerala, would appreciate. So there was a bunch of, plenty of nurses from Kerala who traveled to Bahrain to work in a hospital. And each one of them came from not so well-off background, and the agent was charging money. And in that case, they had taken loans and paid up huge sums of money, something like 20-25 lakhs per person. And the person who was employing them, legal, was a former ambassador to India and was running some hospital service in that country. So they were legal migrants, but they got the short visa before their work permit could be arranged or something could happen. This gentleman got into trouble with the government, and he was put behind bars on some charges of corruption. And these girls were stuck up in that country. Kuwait, not Bahrain, Kuwait. Bahrain was a different case. So these girls were stuck up in Kuwait, plenty in numbers, but our diaspora there were running a school. Again, that school property was created by the Indian diaspora people. Some of them were part trustees, but this very gentleman with his family overtook the entire establishment because you needed a local person to sort of start that establishment. Now, this was a problem of the Indian diaspora in that country. And that was brought up to me, not as a minister, but as an MP. And our Prime Minister sent me off on a parallel kind of a system which REDIO is trying to establish, that go and find out. So I went and talked to these girls, and I said, look, I can speak to the embassy. I went to see the ambassador also. I said, I can speak to the embassy. We can sponsor a flight back, and we will arrange the funds to sort of take you back home. so that all of you are brought back home safe. You know, you'll find it very tricky because these girls responded and said, "Ma'am, we don't want to go back." I'm like, why? They said, "We've all taken loans of 20, 25 lakhs, which we have to return. So we need to be employed in this country. And until and unless we are employed at a certain level of pay, we cannot repay and repatriate that money back home, which we have taken as loans." So I was stuck. I said, "Look, I can carry your message back, but this is little beyond my resources. In my resources, unofficially, I can speak to Indian diaspora or try and do something, manage a flight, charter a plane or something, and we can take you back home with the help of Indian diaspora." And there's this temple committee which was helping. So these girls turned down that request and they said, "We can't go back." So I come back home, I put all this in the report, send it to the PMO and say, "This is what is happening." Immediately, the then EM, Mrs. Sushma Swaraj, was sent back to Kuwait, and she spoke to the Amir there and arranged for their employment in the hospital. And that's how they all got absorbed. So what I'm trying to emphasize when many speakers before me said that we need to complement and work with the government at times and enhance and amplify the effort, I would say you act as a bridge also. Most of the time, it's not just complementary or supplementary nature of work, it is even acting as a bridge. So sending the right message to the right people at the right time becomes very imperative. And since all of them, or most of them I should say, have worked in diplomatic circuit, they also have personal equations across the globe. They also have personal equations within the department. They have their friends across. So even making people aware of the rights, regulations, and helping each other and bridging that gap, which a formal system at times cannot take on. The informal system can act many a times very smoothly, and also being familiar with the protocols of External Affairs Ministry, which at times I personally have problems with. Because when you are an elected person, you think very differently and you work very differently. And I have had those personal experiences also. So they'll say, "You can't speak to so-and-so because you have that status." I said, "Look, I don't care. I'm used to getting things done. So even if I have to speak to a peon, I'm fine with it, because the value of a vote for me, the Secretary to the Government of India and a sweeper has the same value for me, because they both have one vote each. So don't teach me all this. I know my job, and at times I may sound very pushy. They'll say, so-and-so talks to the joint secretary and not the minister. I'm like, I'm happy being one-on-one with anyone. So and they are right. Many a times, the system works, and because the system protects you also. At times you don't know who you're interacting with. So the system has its value. And sometimes people like me can be very impatient because we are used to working very differently and crossing that line half the time. So that's where an agency like REDIO comes in, to keep the formal system as formal system and to keep the informal going and bridging that gap. So I find it absolutely imperative that we should have a system like this. Trusted people who are not there to make name, fame, because they have already attained that. They are serving their time to help the Mother India, which we all intend to, and taking the message forward. So, of course, there's a help which needs to be extended to diaspora, which is absolutely needed. But at times, when there are problems and there's a coordination effort which is needed, and when we are rescuing, especially when I was watching General VK Singh's message. So I know when the crisis happened, General VK Singh personally, because of his military training, was personally present to rescue people from many other nationalities, including Indians, and brought them to India and helped repatriate people back to several other countries. We recently worked on Vande Bharat during COVID crisis. So people were stuck, they had no money to pay up for their tickets and things. And we again brought many people. If we are taking a charter flight, we will just put everyone on board and bring them back. And it was all coordinated effort across the globe. And we ran, I think, the biggest rescue operation for the simple reason we are the biggest diaspora also. So when you have the biggest diaspora, you need to run the biggest rescue operation as well. And most recently, many people, since Mr. Heckner again talked about human rights and things, we saw how human rights have been violated, especially in case of Afghanistan, where people did not know which side to go to and what to do and where to look forward to. And we were running CAA because people in India are living for 50 years, 70 years, 30 years, 25 years, and they are not being recognized as citizens of this country. Whereas many illegal migrants have come from across the border, have attained their Aadhaar card, and have become citizens. So anyone who's legally migrated over a period of time is without human rights. And for that, we brought CAA, especially because they are a persecuted community. And rescuing them at a juncture like this, when they are not even Indian passport holders, was some task. But we did it. And compliments again, I must say, to the Honorable Prime Minister, who personally took care of all the Sikhs and Hindus who were forced, because ultimately, what people need to understand, that the extent of India was up to Afghanistan because of the history inscribed on the walls. That was India. So many people are living on their forefathers' land. It's not as if people from present India migrated to that region, but people on those lands were Indians, because that's what India used to be. And we kept shrinking in the modern times, and some of us remained on the other side. Nevertheless, they may not hold Indian passports, but they continue in their ethos to be Indians. And it's our job to rescue all of them. And we took it upon ourselves to do that in such tough circumstances. And not just those people, because coming back to human rights issue. So human rights of a person to follow one's own religion, and that makes it Guru Granth Sahib to be brought back, which is as important because it's not just a book, it's a guru, it's a teacher who needs to be respected. The ancient manuscripts written in Sharada Lipi, written in Sanskrit, which have been in existence for centuries in Afghanistan, was a task. Some of the most ancient, I would say, gods, people may call it statues, left there because they have existed there for thousands of years. Not just Buddha, the Ganeshas and Durga and so on and so forth, and the Buddhas. And we know what happened to Bamyan Buddhas. So under those circumstances, saving a culture which is on extinction, verge of extinction, becomes as important as anybody else's business becomes important for our business, because we are in public life and you need to rescue and help people around, and that's our job. And that's why I say half the things you do, you can't even mention. And that's the job of the government. But at the same time, half the job you cannot do, radio will help you do. with all the coordination, with all the efforts put together, protecting human rights, protecting human life. And when we say Vasudev Kutumbakam, helping everyone around, whoever you can, immigrants both, becomes the job of External Affairs Ministry. And that's the kind of job we are enshrined to do, legal, illegal, whatever else. So those people in distress need to be helped, and rescuing people in distress of Indian origin and Indian ethos and Indians is their business, but I'm sure they're going to help many more, many other ways. Thank you very, very much. Jai Hind.
Ladies and gentlemen, our Honorable Minister, Srimati Meenakshi Lekhi, thank you so much, ma'am. I guess we all together would like to stand and thank ma'am all together. Zordar taaliyan bajate hain ma'am ke liye. In spite of her busy schedule, you know, she has graciously agreed to be a part of this spectacular evening. एक बार फिर से धन्यवाद ma'am का. Thank you so much for coming here. तो चलिए आगे बढ़ते हैं. Without any further delay, I'd like to take the opportunity to call upon Mr. Rajat Kapoor, who is the Managing Director sitting here on the dais. He's the Managing Director, Indian Diaspora Club, and Senior Executive Radio. A very, very warm welcome.
Thank you, Wani. A very good evening to all. I'm Rajat Kapoor, Managing Director, Indian Diaspora Club. I'm glad to be standing here to express my vote of thanks on this great evening. It's a matter of pride for me on this memorable occasion. A special thanks to our chief guest for accepting our invitation and for being here with us today to grace this occasion. A very hearty vote of thanks to all speakers for gracing your important work and sharing with us your findings and auspicious today. I would further extend hearty thanks to our special dignitaries and guests. I would take this opportunity to convey my deep regards to my mentor, Dr. Dhyaneshwar Mule, for showing us the way to be a part of this initiative. I thank members of the media present here. Finally, I would like to thank all of you present here for making the time to be with us today, helping us make this occasion a grand success. Thank you one and all. Thank you. Jai Hind. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kapoor. And before I officially sign off this beautiful evening, ladies and gentlemen, एक बार फिर से माननीय मंत्री जी का धन्यवाद करती हूँ. Thank you so much, ma'am. And I'd like to thank the dignitaries present here on the dais, the ambassadors, of course. एक बार जोरदार तालियां बजाते हैं for all our special guests present here. I'd like to thank the entire media present here. I'd like to thank each one of you. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. And yes, we are all set with the dinner. You can have your meal, enjoy the dinner, have a good night, keep smiling, be positive. Good night. The entire radio team to kindly join us here on the dais. And of course, all the members from Moment of Positivity to please kindly join us here on the dais.
Yes, sir.
Members of Moment of Positivity and of course, the entire team of radio present here. Let's have a big round of applause for Indian Diaspora and of course the entire team of radio here. Everybody.
A big round of applause for madam.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
संकेत जी वो बैग लेके आओ वो बुक